Thank you, David Strickland. That was great technique on turning those lights on and off. Good evening, LaVergne Church of Christ. We're glad that everyone is here, especially our visitors. You're a welcome guest anytime. If you're able to come back with us Sunday morning, we'd love to have you here for worship at 9 a.m., Lord willing. 10:15 or so, the Bible classes for all ages. And Sunday evening, we'll be back, Lord willing, once again at 6 p.m. Special announcement from the elders. The deacon questionnaires will be available after services in the library tonight and Sunday, March 3rd. Affirmation Sunday is tentatively scheduled for Sunday, March the 10th. If you know you're not able to be at services on Sunday, March the 10th, and would like to participate in Affirmation Sunday, please let the church office know. We've got our church email address that we'd be glad to pass along to anyone that doesn't have that. That's another idea. Tradition singing will be this coming Saturday, March 2nd at 5:30 p.m. Our spring quarter begins on Sunday, March 3rd. New class materials, they will be back there. We've had a little trouble on our couriers, but they will be back here between here and Sunday. So maybe Friday or Saturday, if you want to drop by, you're welcome to do that. Mark your calendar for our upcoming gospel meeting on Saturday, March 9th and Sunday, March the 10th. I believe on the bulletin board out there in the foyer, we have a copy of both of those stapled to the bulletin board, the Hispanic gospel meeting as well as the English speaking. So we're looking forward to that. Also looking forward to our worship this evening. Brother Aubrey will be leading us in singing. Brother Sean, our devotional time, and Jason Pappas, closing prayer. Come on up, Aubrey.
Our songs tonight will be on the same opening in our songbook. Our song before Sean's Devo is number 398. And then our invitation song is right straight across the page, 399. 398, we'll sing the first and third verses. I must needs go home by the way of the cross. There's no other way but this. I shall ne'er get sight of the gates of life if the way of the cross I miss. The way of the cross leads home. The way of the cross leads home. It is sweet to know as I onward go. The way of the cross leads home. Then I bid farewell to the way of the world, to walk in it nevermore. For my Lord has come, and I seek my home, where He waits at the open door. The way of the cross leads home. The way of the cross leads home. It is sweet to know as I onward go. The way of the cross leads home.
Well, good evening. Woke up this morning in Florida. Going to go to bed in Antarctica. Man alive, it got cold out there fast. I was shocked when I walked out for lunch, then even more shocked when I walked out to go to the car to come home with no coat on. Tennessee. Samuel Morse was an American portrait painter back in the 1800s. I think he did Sitting with Aubrey, as a matter of fact. And Like a lot of artists, American artists in the mid-1800s, he went over to Paris, France, and spent a lot of times over there studying with the masters or underneath the masters of the time. And Paris in that time was considered certainly, and perhaps still is, kind of the art capital of the world. And he went over there and undertook a very different sort of painting for himself. He went to the Louvre. Anybody been to the Louvre? We've got some culture in here. Good. So 3 or 4. That's good. That's good. One of the things I like to do on my bucket list is go to the Louvre. He went to the Louvre and sat there every day for hours and hours on end and painted a masterpiece called Gallery of the Louvre. And so what he did is he went and looked at all the paintings, the really detailed and fabulous works of art from masters, even days on back in the 1800s, and kind of rearranged them on the walls of his picture. He repainted all of those masterpieces on the wall and repainted a picture of the Louvre as it was. It took him weeks and weeks to do, and he would start about 9 o'clock in the morning and work until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just painting. It brought a sandwich every day so he didn't have to stop painting right there in the middle. I understand people still, David set up an easel in the Louvre, Jill, and paint. Are they allowed to do that? I don't think she really went. I think she's just saying she did. Oh, 50 years ago. He might have bumped into Mr. Morse when he was there. So in the evenings, to release the stress of all the hard work of being a painter, he would walk around the Paris city and look at the canals and look at the lights and look at the beauty of the city. And one of the things that fascinated him was they had kind of a system of tall towers where they would flash lights to pass messages around the city to get them there quickly. And he was very fascinated by that. And lots of other things that he saw in Paris he was just really intrigued with. Well, the time came for him to come back home. He was American after all, and he had heard that the United States Capitol was getting pretty close to being completed, and they were asking for 3 artists to come and paint large murals on 3 separate walls. And it was quite a bit of money. It was like in the $2,000 range, which back then was quite a bit of money. So even though he had painted this wonderful painting and was pretty famous for the Gallery of the Louvre, he was a starving artist, like a lot of artists. And so he really wanted that commission. Fortunately for him, he knew a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen, even knew some of the former presidents, and he pulled out all the stops to try to get that commission. And he did not. And when he didn't, he shut off himself from his family, from his friends, went into a deep depression, said he just wanted to starve to death and die, stopped eating, lived a life of depression. And as he sat there by himself, just waiting for death to come, he started thinking about those towers and thought, what if I could come up with a way to transmit small electrical currents over a wire in kind of flashes like I saw there, but it'd have to make sense. And so Samuel Morse invented Morse code and the telegraph and became extremely wealthy. And he couldn't wait to get back to France to tell him what he had done. What's the lesson there? Because there's definitely a Devo in that. And I think it ties quite nicely to Matthew chapter 13, verses 3 through 9. And this is the parable of the, you're going to have to fill in the blank for me, right? Parable of the, some of you are going to stand up and say it's the parable of the sower, because it's all about him out there spreading the seed. And so the parable's about him, and that was the lesson. And if you miss anything else, it's got to be the parable of the sower. And you're going to have another third of the congregation rise up and say, absolutely not, it's about the parable of the seed. It's about the seed and where the seed goes and how the seed has effect. And the seed, I'm going to tell you right now, the seed is perfect. The seed is perfect. So then some people say, no, it's definitely about the parable of the soils. And so however you want to slice that story up and however you want to approach it, they're all perfectly appropriate. No need to fight about it. But I don't really want to talk about the seed that fell on the stony ground, the wayside and the stony ground and the thorns and even the good soil. I want to talk about the seed that frustrates me the most when I'm spreading seed, and that's the seed that stays in the sack. Because no matter how much you try to dump the seed out of the sack, there's always a little bit of seed left in the sack. Samuel Morse thought his sack was empty, and yet he had a little bit something left back there that he didn't even know about that ended up changing his life. If you have seed in your sack and it stays there, it doesn't matter what kind of ground you're standing on. It doesn't matter what kind of person you are. If you've got seed in your sack, it will absolutely never bear fruit. Whether you're standing in the Nile River Basin or whether you're standing on the Sahara Desert. My encouragement to you is this: when it comes to spreading God's word, never leave seed in your sack. At the very least. Have you ever planted something that you said you planted and you looked at it and said, well, that ain't going to grow? I've done that. I live in Rutherford County. If you've planted anything in Rutherford County, you've had to at some point say, well, that ain't going to grow. Because it's on rock and it's on clay, and sometimes the clay cracks and it looks like the surface of the desert. Don't leave God's seed in your sack. Spread it. As a matter of fact, the parable talks about spreading it and kind of, in at least this sower just kind of spread it. It seems like kind of in a haphazard way. His goal, it seemed like, was to get as much seed out of his sack as possible, and fall where it may, I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm just going to throw it out there and plant and plant and plant and plant. And then he counted on what? God to do the watering and God to give the increase. If you're here tonight and you feel like you have left some seed in your sack, let me encourage you to correct that. And here's how you can correct it. Now, those of us who went to CYC, it's hard not to kind of sit around and think about the things that we saw. And there's a group called SWAT, and it stands for something with something something. Skits with the Truth. That's it. Skits with the Truth. Thank you for mouthing that. Skits with the Truth. And they have been doing SWAT for so long, and they act out these skits, and they're very impactful, and some of them are very funny. And they've been doing them for so long that they actually said at the beginning of this last presentation, this last weekend, that they were going to pull out one of their closing acts from 20 years ago and do it again. You know, considering that most everybody in the auditorium at that time was probably new, I'd seen that first skit. And the skit went something like this. You see the coach that coaches your son's basketball team, and you think about talking to him about Jesus, but you say, I'll do it another time. And you see your school teacher, and you think about talking to him or her about Jesus, and you think, well, I'll do it another time. And you see a family member you haven't seen in a long time that's not faithful to the Lord, and you say, I'll talk about him, but perhaps another time, and another time, and another time, and another time. And the end of the skit was all of those people that you should have talked to standing before judgment and being told, depart from me. And then when just the Christian was left on stage, he had to face the light. And guess what he was told? You left seed in your sack. If you're here tonight, make it right. If you haven't been faithful enough and had a confidence enough in your Lord to share your seed and stand right where you are in the invitation song and pray to God for the strength and the courage to do what you know you ought to do and spread it. Or if you're here tonight and someone has spread seed in your heart at some point and it's began to blossom and to bloom and to grow and to take root, but you've understood that I'm outside the body of Christ because I've yet to be immersed into water for the remission of my sins so that I can be added to the church by the Lord himself, and then get busy spreading seed of my own. Whatever be your need, won't you come? We'll stand and sing to encourage you.